locally. The bauxite that we have, everything else, the timber, add value before you export. Even the cocoa, we've had that conversation about it. GoldBod just issued a significant policy directive that attempts to tackle this particular issue. But of course, there are big questions about what the directive and its practicality when you look at the key questions about capacity and others that I want my guests to engage tonight on PMX, because this is a big deal. The directive is simple, that you can no longer export raw gold, doré gold. You can't. You have to refine it before you export. I think that's very significant indeed. It's a very bold directive, and I want my guests to weigh in so we can understand what this means, but the practicalities of this. Is it scalable? Is it something that we can do within this country? And how do you sustain this so that it doesn't become a directive on paper and nobody is able to implement in the way it was actually crafted? But the starting point is something that we've been wanting to do for a long time, since independence at least. At least this directive is bold, and whether it addresses a problem, my guests will weigh in on that, and where the challenges are to refine as we implement, right? So that is the major directive. What it will mean is that somebody must bear the cost, and right now it's the SFAs who must bear that cost. That is the aggregators must bear this particular cost. The self-finance aggregators must do that. And then we also know that they will have to review their existing arrangement, because of course, as it is now, we're exporting raw gold and they have contracts to do that. So, and this is going to take effect from 1st of September. And so you have to review the current existing contracts before 1st of September so you can implement. Now, if you fail to refine and you attempt to export in its doré form, you are facing some significant sanctions, revocation of license and others. And we'll get the GoldBod to explain what the other sanctions really is. Also, you can be suspended. But here's the big question. The importance of this is, one, you're retaining value locally, but you are also getting higher export value per ounce, because I believe if you have doré gold, which is unrefined, the value can certainly not be the same as when it's refined, right? Because you are adding value to it, you can sell it as a premium. And I guess weighing on some of the specifics of on the international market, how much would you reasonably get doré gold for per ounce as against what you would get for when it's refined, if you benchmarking it against the global world price, and then they can give you a sense of how much we can stand to gain from the gold that we mine locally. And then we're also talking about retaining the margins and fees here, because right now when we export, we refine abroad, you're taking all that value abroad, but if you do it here, you keep it locally. So this has significant implications for economic sustainability and transformation. And maybe this is a first step in doing something very similar for bauxite, for manganese, for all the other natural resources that we extract from this very rich earth of ours, timber. Just imagine all the natural resources that we have, even for cocoa, to say you can no longer export cocoa unless you've added value and processed it. Can you imagine a directive like that? And whether we can actually do so, considering the global forces at play when you're talking about global commodity like gold. So my guess, there are big questions that we need to examine. And the man himself who is at the helm is talking about, retaining some of the value here, but the purity losses that we constantly have suffered when we export raw gold, he believes this will eliminate it. Would it? Would it encourage, for example, people who don't want to do this here because of existing contracts to smuggle? But then you begin to look at the difference between the realized versus the global price of gold. And you see that this is possibly where you begin to appreciate what potentially this could mean for us. And there are huge caveats here, because if you currently look at the red line here tells you about the realized. That is the actual price you get for your gold as against what the global benchmark price is. And the difference now, and this is according to the BOG as of the June data. We didn't have the current data for the realized, so we just picked that data from June this year. At the time, it was $4,239 for the global benchmark price, the global price, and then your realized was 4,121. So there's a gap there. Now the argument is that if you refine it, you're possibly going to close this gap a bit more. So you're definitely going to have a bit more revenue for this country. But the big question that has been asked is, do we have the capacity to refine everything we produce locally, considering how big the artisanal mining had become? If you look at the two of the Langston's gold refiners in this country, and my guess would add a bit more to this, the Royal Gold and Gold Coast refiners, if you do the calculations based on your own reported data, the combined refinery per day is 714 kg. Now, if you look at the small-scale gold production, if you look at it per day, they're talking about 265 kg. So, of course, there appears to be some capacity, if only you're looking at these two, right? And my guess will weigh in on that. So you have 2.7 times more than production. So there may be a case of those saying, well, if you look at this alone, that shows that there is some capacity. But let's put it within the bigger context. Those who know the sector better would explain what that means as far as capacity. And I wonder whether this will apply to the large-scale mines too. Do they already add value, refining locally before they export, or I mean, it would be interesting. Ken Ashigo will join us to put that in bigger context for me, especially when you look at the numbers here for small scale as against large scale. And small scale overtook large scale in terms of the volume produced, and so you see why this can be very, very beneficial when it comes to refining and the value that it creates for us. And then you look at the breakdown of the Ghana's export earnings, January to June 2026, when it comes to the other commodities. Gold is by far the biggest export earner there of 12.4 billion. If you add value to it, if you refine, right, and this includes both large scale and small scale, but large scale is the biggest. If you refine, argument is that you can expect more value here. And then the key question is, can we do same for the rest? Can we do same for cocoa, oil, and the other natural resources that we produce, add value to it, right? So the refined gold export potential, I mean, it's huge if you look at the gold exports more broadly. My guess will weigh in on this major policy and ask some of the big questions that begging for answers. Is it too much too soon? GoldBod itself will join us to explain the rationale behind it and how they intend to implement and enforce it. My guess after this.
Can he tee up someone in red? And it goes to
That's who goal you for. I got 5 Champions League. You want to know? I be the real goal, chairman. I be the real goal.
Who is the GOAT? Ghana Jollof or Nigeria Jollof?
Ghana Jollof has no co-equal. The smell alone. Oh my God.
No, that shift. You two they lie, eh? Now the same stew when they use cook the rice and then they go put them for top.
Hey, you are lying. Ghana Jollof.
And you this here, forget everybody, yeah? My guy, put your papa in the jar. Put some respect on the goat.
On the goat, the only goat I know lives in Tama.
Every year, we dey give to you back to back.
We are talking about PET. I was on your GRG face.
Except be the goat, huh?
My guy, him be the goat.
Though our choice of goats may differ in football, music, and jollof, Alumobitus always brings us together. Alumo, experience greatness in every moment.
Drink responsibly. Not for sale to persons under 18 and recommended to pregnant women. This advert is FDA approved.
Why? What's wrong?
Paper jam.
Introducing Ghana's leading pay-as-you-copy photocopier leasing company. Lease an A4, A3, heavy-duty or production machine and pay for only the copies made or design your own payment plan. Simple and tietia. That's not all. Incredibly, toners, repairs, maintenance, follow-me printing, centralized tracking all come free of charge. Remember, financial prudence is the name of the game. Folks, forget about the expensive gimmicks and be smart. Join the hundreds of satisfied clients across all the 16 regions and every sector of the economy and save over 60% of your printing costs. Visit us at www.valixlease.com or call 0244-644048. Be prudent and lease a copier. Terms and conditions apply. Valix Lease is a wholly owned Ghanaian company. Valix Lease, affordable document management solutions.
Palladium Residences in Achimota isn't just an address, it's the home you truly earned. Secure your place with just a 10% deposit and choose from beautifully designed modern apartments or spacious townhouses built for everyday comfort. This is more than a building. It's a vibrant, curated community with a clubhouse, state-of-the-art gym, and an on-site hotel, all at ABC Junction, minutes from Achimota Mall. Enjoy city energy while retreating to your private sanctuary. Call now to reserve your unit and benefit from limited launch incentives, including priority unit selection, executive pricing, and flexible payment options available. Don't miss the chance to pick the best homes. Book your private site visit today. Call 050-9823-424. Palladium Residences. Live smart, invest better. Upgrade your print game with Konica Minolta, proudly powered by SkySat Technologies. From all-in-one machines that print, scan, and copy to professional systems and heavy-duty production machines, we deliver unmatched performance. Right now, SkySat has an unbeatable offer. 1 entire year of free servicing on all Konica Minolta machines. That's 12 months of expert maintenance for new and existing customers. Visit our new VIP print center at Pegasus Place, Airport Residential Area for a live demonstration. Call us on 050-164-5180 or 0302-798-829. Again, it's 050-164-5180 or 0302-798-829. SkySat Technologies. Performance that delivers every time.
Hello, my name is Pamela from Customer Service. Please revalidate your account by texting your Ghana card number to 0500,247.
Hey, Abili, wabadim.
Madam, give me the numbers behind your ATM card. I'm calling from the head office.
An email was delivered across to our customers this morning.
Confirm if this is your bank account. 100,100,100.
Thanks for sending your bank card details.
Send the OTP now to avoid cancellation.
EcoBank will never call, email, send an SMS asking for your PIN, OTP, bank card, or Ghana card details.
Don't get played. EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank.
Hello, please, I'm calling from Customer Experience Center.
That's right. Did you see that? That is me. Without me, that tap would just be decoration.
That's so. So when the water comes, where exactly is it waiting? Pipe. I also didn't see any bedroom no. Me tank. Me na me kura.
At least I move water.
And I keep it safe.
Without me, nothing flows.
What's happening?
I bring the life.
I preserve it.
Hey, why is the water going on and off like this? Maybe I can do it alone.
Maybe I need you too.
Strong, reliable, built for every home.
Syntex pipes and tanks. The perfect
water team. Syntex. And you're strong and you're tough.
Thanks for staying with us here on PM Express, and it's always brought to you by Syntax Tanks. It is strong and it's tough. Also brought to you by Pepsodent Cavity Fighter Toothpaste and Stanbic CIB Impact Series. Also by St. Andrews Group of Schools. Looking for water, a tank tonight to store water that is long lasting. You're looking no further than the Syntax Tanks, and you're looking for the tortoise symbol. That is a symbol of quality. And tonight, before you sleep, use a Pepsodent Cavity Fighter Toothpaste, because that is the surest way to guarantee fresher breath and stronger teeth, but also fresher and a mouth that doesn't have challenges with foul breath, because Pepsodent Cavity Fighter prevents cavities, keeps your teeth strong and mouth healthy. And if you're looking to invest, you look no further than the Stanbic Investment Banking, and they will unlock value. Look for the Stanbic Corporate Investment Banking today. Call them on 03028155789. Or go onto their website at stanbicbank.com.gh. And if you're looking to enroll your ward into a school, senior high school, then look at the St. Andrews Group of schools, because they're currently admitting for SHS 1, 2, 3 across campuses at St. Richard's SHS in St. Fusu, at St. Luke SHS in Mankasim, St. Benedict SHS Sifi Asuwenso, Lighthouse SHS New Dubiase, also at the Mount Hebron College in Dunkwa on Ofin, and as well as the Gold Gate SHS Shamar in Takrade. But you can also find them here in Accra, Teshi at the St. Andrews SHS. All the schools are part of the government-free senior high school program. You can call them on 0244696911 or 0207891004. My guest joining me tonight on the day we learned a bit more about the directive from GoldBod that you can no longer export gold in its raw form, gold, unless it's been refined. Abdul Razak Hassan is the Communications Director at the Association of Small Scale Miners. Samuel Bakri is Extractive Sector Expert and Executive Director for Center for Extractives and Development Africa. And we have Engineer Kenneth Ashigbe, is the CEO of the Ghana Chamber of Mines, and Akwesi Konedu is a Deputy Ranking Member of the Lands and Natural Resources Commission. Zainab Gimbo Hassan is a Deputy Media Relations Officer at GoldBod. I want to start with you, Zainab. Zainab, can you explain to me what this policy really is? Who does it affect? Hello, Zainab. You can kindly unmute for me. Do we have Zainab?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Sorry about that. I was trying to look for where the unmute feature was. Okay. Thank you very much for having me on your show, Evans. First of all, the public needs to know what GoldBod has announced. GoldBod has issued a directive to all self-financing SFAs. If I say SFAs, I mean self-financing aggregators. And they are approved off-takers that effective 1st September, all GoldBod purchased by the SFAs and their approved off-takers has to be refined. The raw form of the gold, which is the dough, has to be refined before it can be exported outside the country. Now, one may ask, why is this important? In simple terms, no more exporting of raw gold. The raw state of the gold is not allowed to be exported unless it is refined by an approved refinery. The GoldBod approves the refinery. We take it through the refinery process, and then it will be eligible for exportation. One may ask, want to know why this is so important. Now, gold, as we all know, is Ghana's most important natural resource. And the policy ensures that Ghana does not simply extract the raw gold and export. We're not supposed to be sending it abroad in that raw form. The reason being that when it is unrefined, it simply means that when we export, it will be refined abroad. It will be refined outside the country. Refining it outside the country reduces the purity of the gold. It reduces the purity of the gold from a certain percentage, which sometimes makes it, how do I even put it? I wouldn't say it brings a cost. It actually reduces the financial value we are supposed to be benefiting from the refinery, from refining the gold. Yes, so basically, it is actually a policy that is at the heart of governments, the president, together with GoldBod's. By the end of 2030, we want to make sure that all gold exported in their raw form must cease.
By the end of 2030?
By the end of 2030, gold in its raw form, which is exported outside the country, unrefined, must cease by 2020.
Okay. And linked to the question I was about to ask, why is it only affecting self-financing aggregators? What about non-self-financing aggregators?
Okay, it is affecting the SFAs because we have 4 types of licenses. We have the aggregator, we have the self-financing aggregator, which comes second, and then we have the buyer tier 2s and buyer tier 1s. Now, among the 4 licenses, it is only the self-financing aggregator that is mandated to deal with off-takers in terms of buying and exporting gold. Now, when I say off-takers are simply individuals or companies outside the country. They are not foreigners, but they want to purchase gold from the country. Because we've placed a ban on foreigners trading in gold in the country, we have given that responsibility to our SFAs, to our self-financing aggregators, to be dealing with individuals outside the country. The off-takers are, of course, to be dealing with them in the trading of gold. So because it is the sole responsibility of the SFA, self-financing aggregator, to buy on behalf of off-takers, they are the only ones affected by the directive. Okay.
That's fascinating. Let me quickly bring in the rep with the local, the Small Scale Miners Association, which is very important in the scheme of things. Abdul Razak, good policy?
Yeah, thank you, Evans, for having me. I think, I don't know, it's a good policy. We are all, as industry players, fighting for this thing for a very long time, that at least our goal should have value addition, and we need to get things going at the right direction. But I don't know, with the policy or with the directive by 1st September, that is where I don't know whether we have the capacity, the refineries that we have in this country, whether we are ready for that directive. So if the refinery that we have in this country can contain that, why not? We as industry players, it's a welcoming news.
Okay. We'll come to the refiners and the capacity shortly. I'll bring in my other panelists into the... But from your end, as small-scale miners, the aggregators interface directly with you, I believe. So they aggregate from you and then they sell on to the those outside, the self-financing aggregators. Is that how it works? You interface with them, they aggregate from you, then they have to refine from this directive and then, of course, sell on to those who want to buy. Is that?
I think per the laws of GoldBod, we don't deal directly with these aggregators. We deal with tier 1 and tier 2, which is we sell to them whilst they sell to the aggregators. So whether offtake or GoldBod itself aggregator, we sell through the tier 1s and tier 2s. So that is how we do our business.
Okay, so
you cannot sell direct to the aggregator.
So to be clear, you are in favor of this particular policy. The question you are asking is whether the effective date is too short and maybe a bit unrealistic considering the potential challenges we may have with capacity.
Exactly so. I think we are in support of our natural resources, which is the gold, being refined and take out other metals which are more valuable, which we can also, the nation can have profit on them, rather than just exporting the raw gold that we are all talking about. We are much in support of that. But like I'm asking, whether the time they've given and then the refineries are ready to execute what the policy is talking about.
Sami, give me a sense of what the current local refining capacity is when it comes to gold.
Thank you, Evans. So if you look at, I think I'll just go back to the reason why, sometimes if you're exporting doré, which is the form of gold largely coming from small scale mining, you get the value between 90 to 95%. That's the value you get from exporting doré. With refinery, there is the likelihood you add a bit of more value, as my co-panelist from the small scale mentioned. So let me give you some very basic arithmetic we can do. GoldBod had 104 tons last year. I think it was probably slightly more than that. And that was at today's price would have carried about $15 billion. If you wanted to add a 1% value to that particular gold, that alone will be about 150 million. This is not GoldBod numbers. This is just basic numbers I'm throwing in. If you wanted to improve the gold value by 1%, which is doing first stage refinery here, before you take it out, that alone, you could add about $150 million to that. The capacity we have, currently we have two main refineries that have signed an agreement with GoldBod that we all know publicly that have been disclosed, which is Gold Coast, which has an agreement for 1 ton per week. But if you look at Gold Coast, according to Gold Coast, they have a capacity of about 80 tons a year, which is about 2 tons per week. They could do 2 tons per week if they operate 24 hours. And they have 2 refinery lines, about 600 kilograms a day each on these 2 refinery lines. And then we have also Royal Gold that has also signed an agreement with GoldBod for 1 ton per week. So GoldBod is expected to supply them 1 ton per week. They also have about 400 kilogram a day, expandable to about 800 kilograms if they invest more. So these 2 capacities would be able to, I think, as you presented earlier, if they were to refine all small scale gold, there is likelihood they could be able to do that, because if the whole year is about 100, it means every week GoldBod is buying and exporting about 2 tons a week. And so that is likely they could do. When it comes to whether it is going to generate, so we have the value retention, which is what we have spoken about, and also sometimes employment. Refineries are based on capacities. In fact, they are based on economies of scale. They have to get large volumes for them to be profitable. And so I'm not surprised GoldBod is putting a directive for self-financing aggregator to join GoldBod in supplying gold to the refineries, because if you are a refiner, you need more gold to be able to generate, because the margins on how much you charge on refining per ounce is based on, it's a very small amount. It's based on 0.something% or 0.something% of the value of the gold. And so it's very tiny. So if you don't do more, you may not be able to be in a very good, profitable position. Now, does that gives us a bigger market? currently the 2 refineries do not have an LBMA certificate, which is a prerequisite to access European and other markets. And last year, 98% of our gold export from ASM went to Dubai and India. And so if you look at this, if we're able to invest in the local refinery with LBMA good delivery list companies that could invest and help us acquire certificate, that we reduce the destination risk by expanding our market access to European and American markets. And at the same time, once you have the certification, you could be generating bullion for the central bank as well. And so those are the additional benefit, but that is only if we have invested more and get the accreditation, which is a separate process. Though we have, we understand that Rand Refinery, which is the only LBMA certification in Africa, is providing technical services and commercial support to Gold Coast. We hope that that could also lead into the beginning accreditation process that if Gold Coast could get, or any of the refineries in Ghana could get, that could even help much, much more to us.
I mean, and I like your analysis about the potential gains when it comes to the even 1% refining done locally. Dr. Shigbe, from the perspective of the large-scale mines which you represent, my understanding from the Gold Board is this necessarily doesn't affect you yet. What's your take on that? I mean, this is only self-financing, or does it affect large-scale mines?
Thank you very much, Evans. And let me say that this whole process of refining our gold in Ghana is one of the things that, as a sector, the large-scale sector, we are supporting. And it's something we've been working on prior to even GANRAP and all of that. And again, as Samuel had said, so this does not affect the large scale in terms of this directive. But again, the GANRAP that we're doing, the 30% that large scale are selling to the Bank of Ghana is going to also be doré that will be refined in Ghana with value addition. And again, so Samuel has, really laid it out. The margins for that, your doré in terms of the value addition is quite little. You might add a percentage or less to it in your refinery process, but definitely it's that value that is being added. That is some extra jobs that are being created. But the end value for even the issue of the refinery is the LBMA certification. Currently, as we have it, ASM Gold itself is not responsibly sourced. And so the 30% that the large scale are supposed to do is supposed to then get us into the process of the LBMA accreditation. Because in the 3 years, there is some tonnage of gold, responsibly sourced gold that would have to go through the refineries. But what is going to happen is that for LBMA certification, you cannot, the refineries that will be touching the responsibly sourced gold from the large-scale sector cannot touch the small-scale ASM, which is currently not responsibly sourced. We don't have the whole issue of our traceability in place. So I'm pretty sure that one of these refineries would have to then decide that they will do the LSM gold and then in the process build that capacity, to be able to then get that 3 years of the tonnage that is going to go into it so that you get LBMA. Once you get LBMA certified, then you produce bullion that the Bank of Ghana can also buy and other banks can buy. And again, as Samuel has said, it opens access. So that's one of the things that we need to do. But for me, I think this is a good prerequisite in terms of the whole process of value addition. But in doing that, there are other steps that needs to be taken. This is just the first step we've taken. Refinery in Ghana is very expensive as we speak. So working together with government, together with parliament and all of that, we need to start looking at what do we do to ensure that we can reduce the cost of refinery in our country.
And Dr. Shigbe, clarify this for me. Is that to suggest that it costs more to refine abroad than to refine locally?
No, it costs more to refine in Ghana than to refine, abroad.
Oh, I see. So it's cheaper to refine abroad.
Correct.
I see.
Again, it's the reason why Samuel talks about the issues about the economies of scale. So there's economies of scale, but then there is also the cost of doing business in Ghana. Currently, the cost of even effluent treatment in Ghana is so expensive. The taxes that we have on the chemicals and things that come into this country. The cost of power, for example, is also very expensive. But again, the good thing is that conversation is already ongoing with the Gold Board, with the Ministry of Finance, to look into what do we do to make sure that our refineries are going to be competitive. The whole issue of beneficiation, value addition, we cannot look at it as a country-specific thing. It has to be a regional thing. So Ghana should be positioned as a hub for refineries so that we are able to attract gold from the sub-region to be able to refine here. So our refineries have to improve, their efficiency, their effectiveness. The cost of refining would have to be cheaper. Government will have to find ways in which incentives are put to be able to get people to refine here. You cannot only be using the stick all the time. It has to be the stick going together with the carrot to be able to attract people. But I know that this is a positive first step that we're taking. Second step, because the Gold Board itself, in terms of the gold that it's buying for a while now, the ASM Gold is buying, that Gold Board itself buys, is refined in Ghana before sending it. So value addition. Now we are also asking the self-financing aggregators to also add this. With all the conversation, the MOU that we have signed, 30% from large scale are going to start the process of getting the LBMA certification happening. Then we would start now moving through the process of getting accreditation. But again, this is just the beginning. The value of the gold, if you look at, the value we add from doré to a bullion is just slight. But once you start moving it, to the issues around bullion, to start moving it to the issues around jewelry, start moving it to how it is used in industry and all of that, then you begin to add a lot more value. But again, it's an important first step that as a country we have taken. We now need to look at the things that we need to do to make sure that anybody who's refining here, it makes business sense to be able to do that. If you just use the stick and the regulation to be able to force people to do it, and you don't look at the other things to make yourself competitive, you then will be restricted to your own country. But once we can do it better, we can attract, gold coming in from outside. It also helps with your retention of forex and all of that, because you're adding all of that value, you're buying it locally and all of that. And so, for me, the point I would want to make is that we need to make sure that this conversation is something that we do together with industry, because again, as the small scale sector, I've told you, it's something that they are happy that is happening. So government should engage all of us, together with the large scale, together with all players, and let's see how we do this, and then be focused on just the West African sub-region and beyond, to be able to make sure that we become the hub for refining in the sub-region.
Contractually, large-scale mines, as you said, supply 30% of your doré to the government. The 70%, do you refine it before you sell to the international market? International market?
No. So currently, what happens is that initially the 100% was then what is going to go out, because again, we need LBMA certified refineries to be able to sell our gold to all the other markets. So the 70% goes, and the LBMAs would refine it. The 30% also, what happens is that once we start that process, our local refineries will be the intermediate refinery, and then there will be an LBMA at the end of it. So if it is Gold Coast Refinery, they would have Rand sitting at the end that would take it, and when they've done the first phase of the refinery, they will take it, melt the granules, melt it again, cast it into bars, and stamp them as LBMA certified. They would have to supervise Gold Coast. If it goes to Royal as well, they also have a Swiss LBMA certified refinery that they are working with to make sure it happens. So these two refineries, all in terms of setup, are set up to be able to get LBMA certification. What they now need is a feedstock that is going to go into it, working together with LBMA certified refineries to be able to get that process. It will take about 3 years to be able to get that happen. But so the large scales, they would have to sell to LBMA certified refineries, and the 70% goes now currently, once we start doing the Ghana process, the 70% will still be refined outside, and hopefully we'll get to the point where Ghana would become LBMA certified, and then that conversation then become moot, because again, the refineries are LBMA certified.
Yeah,
Again,
and there are two timeline questions I'll return to you on. One is the announcement by GoldBod that by 2030, all gold extracted in Ghana must be refined before it's exported, which obviously will affect you now. So that time frame is very, very short. So we are in 2016, 2026, we're talking about 4 years, whether that time is realistic. And then the September 1 deadline for this new directive to kick in. I'll pick all your thoughts on that. Already the small-scale miners have indicated that they have concerns whether or not we can implement this within that short time frame. But let me bring in Akufo-Addo, who is a deputy ranking member, Lands and Natural Resources Committee in Parliament. This is such a substantive, consequential policy directive targeted at self-financing aggregators. In other words, no raw gold can be exported now from September 1. What's your verdict on that policy? Good?
Evans, good evening, and let me say a very good evening to my co-panelists. In the process of Ghana trying to add value to whatever natural resource that we do have, or whatever product that we do have, I think it's always been a good idea, and I think it hasn't always even started with only gold. We have that with cocoa and all other products, even in terms of maize, for us to be able to extract cornstarch that is used in pharmaceutical industry. So when it's coming in the directive of gold, it is very important. And I think that is one of the main reasons why the country in 2024 tried as much as possible to have a gold refinery for itself, where we had the Bank of Ghana and so with the government and other private partners having the Royal Gold Refinery that we do have. But be that as it may, Evans, the challenge now is, has there been proper stakeholder consultation in all of this matter, first and foremost? Because if you look at the timelines that we are going to use now, that by September 1, we are just looking at almost about a week from now. We are just looking at a week from now. How prepared are we? Necessarily, we may have 2 refineries that have the capacity of trying to do, say, 1,200 kilos a day or a week, probably. So they might, but are they prepared now to take upon themselves all of these? Because once we are able to do that refinery, first and foremost, we add value to it. We are also able to do much more additional employment to that. And also, we will be in a better position to have other byproducts from it. We probably would have our silvers from it. We have our base metals like zinc and nickel and the rest from it, which other countries would have when they are refining for us. So it's important that we do the refinery. But first and foremost, we must establish that has there been proper consultation? Is the state and the companies, refineries here ready to do that? Would they be able to do that under the current circumstances of cost that they do? Because if you are to refine, I mean, they either have the percentage or the flat rate. And most often here, they use the percentage, which is about 2% of the value of the gold that is being refined. And that is a chunk of the money. You can compare that to, say, less than a percentage elsewhere in the world. Some places are just 0.5 of a percentage. So you must be looking at that. And the most importantly, I mean, a chunk of the gold that we mine currently and that is being sold currently, they cannot be traced. I mean, they are untraceable. Looking at how they are sourced, how they are mined, and the rest. And for us also not having a certificate, I remember visiting the Gold Coast refinery. We had a lengthy discussion. We went through the whole process that they had. We went through the factory and everything. And one of the main things that they were worried about was that we do not have an LBMA certification here. And looking at the nature of how our gold is sourced, that becomes a difficulty. So from now to, say, September 1, fair deal, that is coming for the self-financing individuals. Probably they are small. We can push them directly to these 2 mines that we do have. But we are looking at the bigger picture where we are looking at by 2030. Are we by then going to have a proper way of trying to account for every single gold that is being mined in this country? What are the processes from now that would establish that process for us to know that this is going to be verifiable for us to be able to do that. I believe there is a hint about trying to have an overhaul of our Mining Act. Probably once that comes to the fore, I think we have to take a careful look at that, how to play some of the intend wanting to do with the future in terms of mining our gold and the other resources. It is also not only about just adding value to the dory and turning them into bullions. Yes, Engineer Kanashigbe said the jewelries and the rest, but there are more to that. It is used in pharmacy, it is used in aeronautical engineer, it is used in so many other. We should be in a position that in all of these areas, even if not to the final product, we must do it to a semi-finished product for them to be able to use, say, in the aviation industry, in the electronics industry, and all of those ones. Once we are able to do that, that is where we are going to get the real value addition to our gold dories in this country. So yes, fair deal. It is a nice idea. It is a good idea, an idea that has always been there. That is why we've had the opportunity of having these refineries and the state even participating in that in the previous administration. So let's continue from that, but we should be very careful how rapid we are moving. Although we intend wanting to have that done, we must be able to do proper consultation. Because at the end of the day, if we don't do that and we don't have a proper channel to trace all of these gold, refine them, and for people to come and appreciate that, we would end up nowhere. So we should not just be putting out the date and the timelines.
Yeah.
But have we prepared the system? Have we prepared the individual? Have we prepared even the refineries to be able to absorb? That is most important.
Let me put that question to the Gold Board rep on the show, Zainab. Zainab, what sort of consultations went into this? Talking to the self-financing aggregators, the refiners, that led to the decision to implement this from September 1?
Okay. Well, there is no disclosed consultation. There's no disclosed consultation as far as this is concerned. But what I know is, yes, we can't just come out with such a directive without going into consultation with the refineries and the SFAs. All we are saying is that definitely, I know some of the SFAs may have had priorities to this directive. All we are saying is that the SFAs don't need to do much. It is just a directive. It's not going to affect them in any way.
No, but I think that from your directive, they will have to bear the cost, correct?
Yes, they will bear the cost.
So that's additional cost. And from what Kanashigbe is saying, it's going to cost them more to do it here than do it abroad. And they have contracts already to refine it abroad.
So they have two options. The cost is not necessarily being directed at them. It's not the SFA's sole mandate to bear all the costs. Now, you go in an agreement. For the existing contracts, right now, for the existing contracts between the SFAs and the off-takers, we've given them until 31st of August to amend their existing off-take agreements. Now, in the off-take agreements, it includes the self-financing, the off-takers, bearing the cost. In case the SFA is unable to bear the cost, the one buying the gold, which is the off-taker, would have to bear that cost. And it should be all embedded. It should all be embedded in the contract agreement. I hope you understand. Yeah. Yes, we are embedding all of it in the agreement. So it's not solely going to be the responsibility or the burden on the aggregator. If the aggregator's strength cannot weigh the costs, you can, as part of the agreement, you can speak to your off-taker and then they will finance it together with the money they are bringing in for the purchase of the gold.
Sami, is that a fair arrangement?
No.
In terms of the arrangement between the self-financing aggregator and the off-taker, that one is very difficult for me to comment on. But when you refine as a first stage here, the the burden is on the off-taker.
Off-taker.
It's the same thing that GoldBod is doing as well. GoldBod also supplied directly to off-takers. And so if GoldBod is refining here, they would have to integrate and internalize that particular cost in the off-taker's cost. You have to consider that. But there are benefits beyond doing it here, despite the expense. I think my senior Ken said about the jobs. If you look at Gold Coast Refinery, I think they had mentioned that if they were operating 24 hours, they were creating about 162 jobs, direct jobs, doesn't include the indirect. I'm not sure of Royal, but that is additional benefit that we get here when it comes to non-fiscal benefits that we will get in terms of the monies that they charge. But I think somebody may have mentioned $2. I don't think it is up to $2. I know that there is a difference between doing that even in Rand in South Africa. Refineries are economies of scale. Today, if you look at it,
it's 0.3%. It's 0.3%. It's 0.3%.
Yes, 0.3%, yeah. Some of the gold mine, even the large scale, who probably own or have interest in some of the refineries, even do not refine at their own refineries. They refine elsewhere because they find it's cheaper. Correct. So it's all about the economies of scale. Once you can refine cheaper, business will come to you. But I think, as Ken mentioned, this is a first step, and this is even the least benefit when it comes to financials. I think my co-panelist, the MP, had mentioned there is the minting, the fabrication, the industrial use and supply, the jewelry, the coins, the bars, even the bullion is even the lower side. So all these, the electronics, those are the bigger side. We as a country should have a strategy and say that whilst we are training the current refineries, the aim is to get to a point where we are able to do supply to all other industries beyond bullion. And once we have a strategy, so whether the 4 years ahead of us is that particular strategy, I can't tell. But if it is the 4 years ahead of us, which is the strategy, then it will be a very good strategy for us to follow up with as well. And that's what I'm not sure.
And Same, this kicks off, implementation date is a week away, 1st of September. Is that realistic?
I am very sure that they may have had some, well, I can't tell, but I believe they may have had some discussions with the self-financing aggregators. The last I checked, I think maybe Zainab could correct me, self-financing aggregators were no more than 50. The last I checked. If there are more, maybe
69.
How many?
Yeah, about 69.
69. So they're about 69. Those are, and they have all their contacts. They should be able to contact them and let them know that this is what the government is thinking about. And maybe you have to prepare as well yourself. For as Zainab mentioned, what it means is that once you have your bullion, GoldBod is likely to give you export certificate or approval only when you have shown evidence that you have done that at one of the refineries.
Absolutely, and the directive is clear. If you do not refine it here, you face license suspension, revocation, withdrawal. All that is part of the sanctions list.
Yeah, I would suggest that whilst this enforcement is ongoing, it should feed into the government strategy of ensuring that by 2030, all gold are refined in Ghana. And as Ken had mentioned, that requires certain investment. And we have to put all those investment with the directive, with the enforcement, and ensure that we are not just doing an enforcement and at some point we don't achieve that bigger strategic objective.
Yeah, is there potential, Same, considering every policy comes with the initial challenges, considering the costs that the self-financing aggregators or the off-takers will have to bear, and in this directive, it's either the self-finance aggregator or the off-taker who have to bear the cost. Considering that additional cost, considering it's costing more to do it locally, is there the risk that it may push some to smuggle it out once you've aggregated, so that you can refine it elsewhere cheaper?
It may, there is in theory, yes, there could be. But if you look at the cost of refinery, if it is even 0.03, that's 0.03% of 4,600, maybe maximum $2. If you calculate that and look at the fact that you have a license, and if there is a risk of smuggling and you are being, caught, they will seize the gold, and that particular cost of smuggling may be more expensive than you actually refining. I think most people will stick to the refining before they export. In theory, in books, yes, anything you introduce that is new, that people think they're going to have to bear the cost, they may be likely thinking that, can I have alternative ways? But if the alternative ways are illegal, and then if you are the consequence is higher than you not actually taking that path, they would not. Before I end, I would also want to comment on the traceability issue. I think, yes.
Sammy, just a second, I'll come to that because I think it's a substantive part of the conversation, both the traceability and link to the LBMA certification. I'll come to that at the end. How do we pursue that? And what is the path towards it? That's a very big question that we'll address. But I want to bring in Abdul Razak quickly. I believe, Abdul, you wanted to chip in on the question of who bears the cost. From where you sit, is the current arrangement in the directive, sensible and fair that the the self-finance aggregators bear the cost if, of course, they can, or the off-takers bear the cost? Well, what do you say to that? Fair?
Yeah, I think it's fair because even the off-takers, when they even send it outside the country, they bear the cost. So if they should bear the cost in refining it here for all of us to benefit as a country, I think it is in the right direction. So there's no any debate on that. They have to bear the cost so that at the end of the day, we all move as a country.
Okay, and considering the cost involved, that it's going to cost them more to do it here than do it outside. You guys are on the field mining and providing the Dory gold. What about the fear that I put to Sami that this could push people to, already there are concerns about the discount, etc., push people to even now consider smuggling more than before? Is that a possibility?
Yes, there's a possibility, but in another angle that we need to look at is that gold itself, it is a commodity whereby there are so many challenges in it. So sometimes you need to work on yourself. You need to weigh yourself before you enter into that industry. So the operational cost and everything, we as industry players, even to get the ore itself, you incur so many challenges or so many costs. So if they are also taking the other side of it, I don't think there should be any big deal. So I think they bearing the cost shouldn't be anything because it will also help the country, and then the youth unemployment to also reduce, because when this refinery kicks off, like my other colleague said, they have some number of people, youth that they will employ. So we should look at the balance. While they are looking at the cost, yes, the operational cost may be higher, but we should also look at the way we are handling these two issues. And I think they have to bear the cost.
I mean, Ken Ashigbe, 2030 is the set end date, the target for implementation, full-scale implementation of non-export of raw gold. Is that a realistic time frame? Because by that date, large-scale mines will then have to refine all your gold locally before it's exported. Is that realistic?
So, well, thank you very much, Evans. But before I even get to the time scale, in terms of the issue about the cost, and it's, again, we should all realize the fact that, when you want to do these local content, it comes with some cost. So, but again, all of us need to chip into it. The more we do in this country and the more we all work together, government needs to put its skin in the game. The issue, of course, that is coming from the taxes and the levies that are on, government would have to look at that. And I know that conversation is going on. The issues of these private sector people who own the refineries in terms of their technology that they need to put in to be able to ensure that they reduce their cost. It's something that we need to do. The issue of even power, currently the cost of power. So there might be some policy decisions that would have to be taken because of the criticality of refinery. Is it possible that in the energy mix, we will give them, a lot more of the hydro that is cheaper? All of these are conversations that we need to do. The 24-hour economy is thinking of putting together some solar, large solar plants, and which will reduce the cost of energy to around 3 to 4 cents per kilowatt hour. That all of those are, things that are going to come. So I think that this is the issue of beneficiation is a good thing for us. And, all of us need to chip in. But it has to be done collaboratively. Government need to embrace industry to all work together so that we all can reduce the cost of doing this, because we're looking at the issues of value. So there are some pains. Again, like the large scale, for example, the gun wrap, we are starting with a 0.55 when we are doing a weighted average of 0.098. So that's some extra subsidization that we're doing for government. But we all need to work together as a collective, as a country, as investors, working together with government to reduce the cost. So on the issues
Ken, just a second. I think you've just raised a very important point I need to explore a bit more, which means that for the cost to come down, there must be some policy changes, and that this directive must go together with other policy interventions to reduce the cost, reduce the potential for smuggling. So let me bring in a parliamentarian, because they will probably have a say in this. I believe the current architecture, the taxes in the refining area and all that then needs to be looked at more holistically. What's your take on that? What policy additions must come to complement this to make this sustainable over time?
Evans, when we started talking about the cost, we made it feel like because Ghana is going to benefit in the direction of the revenue that will come in and the additional jobs that will come in, we felt it was okay because the self-financing people or either their off-takers are going to. That is the burden and the cost to them, but not to the state. The cost to them is a benefit to the state, and that can deprive them of a certain profit or a margin. And that if the state does not do anything about it, it will just be a push-off for them. And that is why we are on the table now discussing that the state ought to bring itself in the game by trying to reduce some of the costs that are associated with those processing that these gold refineries does. You see, so we should not make it a point like, everybody, because we are going to do the refinery. Because the point is that I have a contract and I have somewhere that I would have taken my dory to go and refine.
And refine cheaply.
Refine cheaper than what I would have paid in Ghana. And now I'm being forced to do that here. So we must not just gloss over that cost, because the point is that if I'm an off-taker and I'm forced to refine here, I'm going to pay more. What is the state going to do in terms of reducing that cost for me? And that is where Engineer Kanasibe now comes in and they are bringing it in. That would be a direct policy by the state to bring in certain policies, to bring in either a bill, to bring in either that, to reduce some of these costs that are associated with the processes that these refineries go in, whether to give them tax holidays, because now we are going to do that, whether to give them, just as Ken said, reduce a tariff in terms of electricity and otherwise, and maybe to a certain extent, in terms of processing these local ones, certain costs to be taken off by the state for them to reduce that cost that these off-takers and self-financing aggregators are going to pay in terms of refining here, so that we can keep the jobs here and also be able to have the byproduct and all other auxiliaries towards that processing here. So we'll be willing, just as we did for one district, one factory, to promote ingenuity in terms of growth in the industry, just as we did during our time. We'll be willing for government to bring a policy to parliament so that we can all deliberate on that. I believe even such a proposal or such a directive by the GoldBod ought to have passed through parliament for us to have had discussion over it before. I only saw the document, I only saw the directive in terms of the document out and for us to be discussing it. Some of these policies, we all have to sit down first and foremost and discuss that. We ought not to be rushing out there. Then we'll come back again, then to be coming back to be able to find a way around it. The discussion must be before the policy is put out there. We will be willing at any point in time that the state is ready to bring in their policies, their programs, so as to be able to help in this direction, we'll be there for them.
Yeah,
but it should not always be an afterthought matter.
Yeah.
And that becomes a challenge.
Yeah.
Because now we are discussing, we have 1 week to the deadline, and we are now discussing how to reduce the cost so that those who, the off-takers and the rest, will not be overburdened by that. And for these companies also to be able to be in a position to refine.
Yeah.
I remember when we went to Gold Coast refining, if you look at the process they go through in terms of the bills that they would have to pay in electricity bills and processing of their those I mean, that was huge. Yeah. That was affluence. Yeah, that was very huge. The plant that he was trying to build to do that, the phases that he's done, and the rest. And to be able to do that, he needs to be sustained, such that you'll be able to do that and continuously keep people. And even Evans, one of the interesting things that we are not talking about is what we term the technology transfer and the human capital development that we are having in terms of these processing. Because at the end of the day, all of these human capital will be left with us here in this country for us to be able to expand. So we should be doing this discussion before putting
the implementation
out the policy out there. The implementation. Otherwise, it's always failed.
Yeah, and Sami, very briefly, what policy proposals would you put on the table now for government to consider to ease that burden that the self-financing aggregators will now have to bear under this current arrangement immediately? Or, I mean, what would you propose the government must look at immediately to make this sustainable over time so that implementation is practical? Sorry, unmute for me.
It was my 2030.
Oh, I'll come to you. Right after him, I'll come to you. Yes, I mean, very quickly, very briefly to the point.
Yes. So, I mean, to ease, I mean, it's for you to get the refineries to charge cheaper. That's what you can do to ease. So
how should government go about? What should government do to achieve that?
I mean, I will side with Ken. There should be a policy targeted at the refinery. Refineries require a huge power. We are talking about heating, melting gold. It's huge power. And so because we have some cheaper power options, we can create that particular as a business park and say, once you are operating under refinery, helping to refine gold, we're going to give you this tariff. And that is one of the key things to reduce the cost that they could also charge aggregators, including even GoldBod, because GoldBod has to also pay for that same refinery charge before they export. So that should be that other side of the policy that can help them. Also, I mean, I would have said financing, but, we always rely on FDI. Otherwise, further financing to increase the capacities further, whilst they get more feed, would also help to reduce the cost per unit.
Well, what about the current taxes that we have? Should we be scrapping and reducing it on refining in Ghana?
It could be a policy decision to say that because we want to get to that particular 100% by 3-4 years, what can we do when it comes to tax holidays? It doesn't have to be scrapped. It could be tax holidays. It could be looking into what the taxes, whether they are burdening these companies. And then we could actually use that to incentivize them, and then they could also reduce the cost per unit. Okay. That makes us competitive with other refineries in the region.
Okay, I mean, the ultimate objective, obviously, is this 2030 deadline for local refining on all gold produced in Ghana. And can actually address that for me? That will rope you in the large-scale mines in 4 years' time. Realistic time frame?
Well, again, it's something that we need to work together with government. There are things that we need to do. Again, one of the major prerequisites would be the attainment of the LBMA certification. Otherwise, that you cannot do. We need to also be working on making sure that ASM Gold is also responsible. So this issue around traceability, GoldBod needs to speed up this 18-month process to be able to get traceability. We need to get that. We need to stop the issues around illegal mining. That has to, because otherwise, then being able to be a responsible source, that would also have to go. And again, another major thing we need to do, we should make sure that this whole refinery thing is incentive driven. You go into countries like Tanzania, for example, if you refine your gold locally, what they do is that they give you get a reduction in the royalties and the CIT that you pay. India is doing the same thing. Even South Africa does the same thing. So that's why I say it has to be the carrot and the stick. We need to put in the incentives, make it a lot more sustainable and, over a long time, that if you just use the stick and it becomes inefficient, you find out that it will grind to a halt. But I think the thing about this, the gold bond needs to carry not only the government itself needs to carry everybody along so that we can look at this as a Ghana project that we want to do. What do we do to make sure that the 2030 is something that we can all do, and also focus on making sure that it then becomes a hub to attract other people who will come, because we have the right incentives in place, because we also have built, industries that are very effective in terms of the way they are doing the refinery. And then we also have to be thinking about, again, as my colleagues have said, building the downstream, because if you look at the issues around the gold for the percentages, you see that investment in terms of the demand, global demand, it's investment that is leading it, followed by jewelry, then official sector and technology. Technology might take us. So we need to, what do we do to make sure we can tap into the investment side of things that is driving a lot more of the demand for gold, and then also jewelry and all of that. So those are things that we need to do. And it cannot be done by government alone. It has to be done together with all stakeholders coming to the table and making sure what is the right pathway to get there.
And Ken, explain this to me. I get a sense from what you're saying that this 2030 deadline may not be feasible if we do not attain and secure the LBMA certification.
Right. Again, but fortunately for us, if we do all the right things, we can, from today, we can get LBMA in 3 years. And so because that 3 years is less than 4 years, then we'll be able to get that happening. So I think it's realistic if we all work together, and there are various things that we need to do to be able to get there. Because if you are not the most efficient person,
can we get a certification with illegal mining still being an issue as it is now?
Not at all.
Yes. So again, large scale would be.
I heard somebody say not at all. Who's that? I want to hear the reason why he said not at all, because it's important.
I said not.
Okay, give me a second. Let me hear Ken answer a subsequent question. I'll come back to you.
So
can we do it with Galamsey?
So let me answer it completely. So large scale would be help us. The large scale feedstock of 30% will help us get there. But to be able to do it well, we need to be able to now start getting the benefits from ASM Gold. ASM Gold has to be responsibly sourced. So it is linked to it. It is linked inextricably to it. We need to get that resolved. And currently, as we sit, is the reason why we will struggle to get the two refineries to touch large-scale gold for the LBMA certification, because you can't commingle not just the gold. You can't get gold from the ASM commingled with large-scale. You also cannot even commingle profits. So if you decide that you have a refinery that has two separate factories, which would be so that there's a Chinese war between the two, because the profit will be commingled, the LBMA certification will not happen. So it is important that we resolve this issue of irresponsible and illegal mining that taints our ASM, and it's a major problem. We're losing that particular fight of small scale mining, and we all need to treat it well. Once we have this policy objective that we want to do, let's solve that problem. Otherwise, it could damage what we want to do with local refinery.
Akufo-Addo.
Evans, Engineer Ashigbe has just put it right. Once we are not able to separate how we've sourced our gold, and we are putting all of the gold that we are mining into the same basket, there's no way we'll be able to attain an LBMA certification, because if we are not able to trace, and currently as we sit, ASM gold outweighs large-scale mining gold in this country in terms of its production and sale. That is what we've been told. The sales that we've done over the last 1.5 years, ASM gold has outweighed the large scale. And the ASM gold, we cannot in any way differentiate between what was legal and illegal. And in totality, as we said, almost all ASM gold is through Galamsey. So how are you going to use that to be able to go refine and obtain an LBMA certification for yourself under these conditions within this period? We have 4 years, but are we going to be able to curtail or stop Galamsey within the shortest possible time from the nature of what we are seeing now? That is practically impossible. No, because of the nature of how we build our gold transaction in this country. It's extraction, it's purchasing, and it's sales. That is going to be difficult. So if we are not able to take certain critical decisions as to how to end illegal small-scale mining activities that is ongoing now, it will be very difficult attaining the 2030 milestone that we do have in terms of processing all our gold in this country by attaining LBMA certification. And that will come first. If we are not able to get that, all the processing, we cannot have a mark on them and be able to take it out there. And so that is why even currently, as we said, most of our gold probably goes to India and Dubai and cannot enter the European market. Because if we are not able to do that traceability and knowing very well that we have illegal mine activities rampantly ongoing and everybody, the whole world is observant of what is happening in this country, it will be very difficult for them accepting our gold and in terms of its processed nature and to be able to certify it. So that is very difficult.
Really fascinating hearing you about the big questions that we need to be answering as we start this process towards 2030. Yes. I want to bring in Abdul Razak. You are with the small-scale miners, and as we've been talking, the artisanal mining is where the problem is in attaining that ultimate objective of 2030, refining everything locally. What's your response to the traceability question? How do we get that fixed with the nature of the problem that is in your area of extraction? And how that hinders our ability to get LBMA?
Yes, Evans, thank you very much. I think my senior panelists, I think they've elaborated some of this traceability, but there's not all which is factual, because when we are talking of illegal or traceability, I think it's not only the small-scale mining sector where which can talk of illegal mining activities. So tracing up these illegalities and then legal ones, why can't we do? That is why we have ASM Group, who are licensed miners, which can be traced. Likewise, there are large-scale companies which can be traced. And we have other large-scale companies too, where illegal mining activities are going on. So it's a holistic conversation that we need to look at. How do we solve these illegal activities and make sure that we take these illegal miners out of the system and then look at the legalities? So if we say we cannot trace small-scale mining gold, I differ a bit, because even GoldBod, with this traceability issue, we engaged them. We went all around the country. We spoke to our members. Many of them, as we speak, you can trace where they are getting their gold and how they are doing it, because their records keeping and everything. GoldBod is tracing all these things. So yes, illegal activities is something which is disturbing all of us. And we need to look at it separately by not mixing the two. Always saying that ASM gold are all illegal, because if you look at what Honorable Evans said, illegal small scale. Do we have illegal small scale? Because we have small scale and we have illegal mining.
We do have illegal small scale.
We don't have. If you are saying we have illegal small scale mining, then the law you passed in 1989 is wrong, because we have small scale mining, which is a legal entity, and we have illegal activities which we need to deal with. By combining the two, always, some of us, we don't know where.
Akwesi, and I'll come to Same.
So I agree that we have legal small-scale miners, and we, again, we should look at the output of legal small-scale miners, and then look at the output of GoldBod. What is the differential? That differential is coming from illegal. But again, we cannot also say majority of ASM, because there are some legal small-scale miners who are mining properly. We need to take them through the process of the responsible sourcing, and make sure that they're doing the right thing. But we definitely also know, and again, I would agree with him that we should talk about illegal mining and not talk about illegal small scale, because again, there are small scale miners who are doing the right thing, but they are, there are a lot of illegal mining activity, and they tend to be, in terms of their scale, they tend to be small, but we have legal small scale miners, and there's the illegal mining that we should do.
We should not be running around these markets. Currently, as we speak, illegal small-scale mining activities outweigh legal small-scale mining activities in this country. If we do this, we cannot solve the problem. Engineer, how many large-scale minings are illegal mining?
True.
Which large-scale mining company in this country is illegally mining?
Very little, almost none. None, because
none.
they're regulated.
I mean,
none.
They are regulated. That is the point.
None.
The totality of all of them are regulated. They may have certain activities that may infringe on the law.
Yeah.
In terms of even licensing of some of the excavators and those are not primarily what we term as illegal mining.
No.
But the extraction of it is what we are talking about.
Right.
In terms of the extraction, illegal small-scale mining activities outweigh legal small-scale mining activities.
True.
If we are not bold, yes, that is what I say. So we must look at it and be bold about that, so that we can have a way at resolving that. That would even help my brother, the legal one, because currently as we speak, if it gets to that point that we would want to even refine everything, and we are not able to separate your legal activities from the chunk of the illegal activities, your gold will be stuck with you.
Yeah.
Nobody would want to pick. Yeah. So if we start doing that, there are none, and there are small, and there are that, and there are that. Even part of your own artisanal small-scale mining site at times are overrun by illegal miners, which you in turn wanting the state to protect it for you and the rest. Even large-scale mining activities at times are confronted with some of these challenges of people overrunning some of these concession sites and the rest. So it is not about condemning everybody, but it's about establishing the fact that as we speak today, illegal small-scale mining activities outweigh the legal aspect of it.
Yeah.
And that is the point
interesting point. And Sami, very quickly, so we must obviously trace where the gold is coming from to put us in good stead for the LBMA. How do we do that? How do we fix the traceability question?
Thank you, Evans. It's quite important. Traceability is important. My discussion with GoldBod shows that they are very serious about it. I think they've already launched a procurement to get a consultant or a firm to set up this system. Traceability is steps. You can't get up one day and say, I have put a traceability system. It's a steps. First of all, the important point is to trace the point where the gold are coming from. Once you map them, then you can introduce a chain of custody system. And you need to have a blockchain system. So when there is the first entry by the miners, it can't get out of the system. They can control all the data. Whoever wants to purchase that minus gold will go into the system and also file their information. So the information becomes linked. And therefore, you can help to trace it. But it is a process. I mean, I've been to Tanzania. We asked them, you could even start with a manual process whereby everybody like GoldBod tried to start. GoldBod has started this. Now, the regulatory mandate when it comes to the production is with Mencom. They need the same, they need to be on the same wavelength to be able to match what they are doing. So GoldBod, you would hear announcement about enforcement on all their traders to use their receipt. We want something similar in the mining sector. After you've done some level of consultation, provide some training for them to say that this is what we are introducing now. And so that first chain of custody, and then you have to look at the tracing system. You would have to look at the assurance. The assurance is because you are using a blockchain technology. So it is assured that the data that was entered at the beginning has been linked and is the same information that has come. And then it also has to match with the physicality of the gold as well. So there are 2 or 3 things, some of them under the legal ambient of GoldBod, some of them under Minerals Commission, EPA, and Water Resource Commission. When it comes to responsible mining, so though you can trace the gold, how do you ensure that the mine is mining responsibly?
Yeah.
Responsibly would simply means that I have license, I have all what I'm supposed to get when it comes to the license and legal regulatory requirement, but I'm mining and destroying water body. That doesn't make me responsible. So those things have to be done by the regulator, in this case, Mencom, doing an assessment, regular assessment to show that these mines are on the good list, these mines are on the medium list, these mines are not doing very well. In that case, it will help the segregation for GoldBod to say, because you are not performing very well, I cannot source from you and I cannot buy from you as well. So that is a process. And I have to sound this warning that it's very difficult for you to introduce traceability to get it perfectly in 1 year. It may take 2-3 years whilst you implement the steps. and then you add on as you go. You go ahead with that implementation. So that is what I can say.
Thank you, gentlemen. And one thing is very clear to me: this policy that takes effect on 1st of September, it needs way more to make it sustainable over time. It's a far more complex problem than just saying the aggregators, the self-finance aggregators, should simply refine locally. And I hope that as we proceed and the conversation is very clear, additional policies must be introduced to make this a more holistic approach to it. Thank you, gentlemen. Enjoy the rest of the evening.
Can he tee up someone in red? And it goes towards...
That's who goal is for. What 5 Champions League? You want to know? I be the real goat, Chairman. I be the real goat. The left magician.
Who is the goat? Ghana Jollof or Nigerian Jollof?
Ghana Jollof has no co-equal. The smell alone. Oh my God.
No, that shift. You two they lie. Now the same stew when they use cook the rice and then they go put them for top.
Hey. You are lying. Ghana Jollof.
Are you busy? Forget everybody. Yeah.
My guy.
Put your papa in the jar. Put some respect on the goat.
On the goat. The only goat I know lives in Tama.
Every year we dey give to you back. We are talking about BET. I want some Yajiaji face.
Except be the goat. Huh? My guy, him be the goat.
Though our choice of goats may differ in football, music, and jollof, Alomobitis always brings us together.